Hello, I'm Mike Huckabee, and I'm supposed to help you figure things out on this program. But since I'm not completely able to do that myself, I try to get some really smart people to come and help me out. This evening, it's Julia Manchester, who covers national politics for The Hill. She's got a lot on her plate, as you could imagine, but she's been kind enough to join us tonight. So, Julia, welcome again to Huckabee Today. I want to jump right into it. Let's talk about the extraordinary election results. I mean, how could we not talk about that? But I think most everyone was a little overwhelmed by the red wave of Donald Trump winning the popular vote, sweeping all seven of the swing states, and basically experiencing nothing short of a wipeout, including the Senate and most likely the House. Let me ask you, were you surprised by the outcome and especially by the margin?
Governor, I wasn't surprised by the outcome. I think this race could have gone either way. And I woke up on Tuesday morning thinking we could see a Harris win, but also thinking that we could see a Trump win. It could have swung either way, but I am surprised by the margin. A lot of Republicans and Democrats I've chatted with have also said they are surprised by that margin. Like you said, I mean, this is the first time a Republican presidential nominee has won the popular vote since 2004 with George W. Bush at the top of the ticket. All seven swing states went to Donald Trump, despite poll after poll showing a very, very narrow race between him and Kamala Harris. I think a lot of this has to do, obviously, with Trump making inroads with groups of voters that Democrats, previously had a pretty tight grip on, like Latino voters, for example. He won Latino men, made inroads with Latina women, for example. With women in general, we saw him making inroads with Black men. So this was definitely an overwhelming victory, and I was surprised by that margin.
One of the things that became very evident was that the attacks on Donald Trump, and I think more importantly, the attacks on his supporters, calling them un American, Nazis, garbage, deplorable, fascist, racist, homophobes, transphobes, it seems to have royally backfired. And I'm looking at the results of this election, and particularly within the demographics, you mentioned several of them. And I'm thinking if Donald Trump is a sexist, he's a very lousy sexist because a lot of women voted for him that didn't before. If he's a racist, he's a terrible racist because a lot of people of color voted for him. If he's a Nazi, my gosh, he's a horrible Nazi because a lot of Jews voted for him, far more than did before. Did the Democrats overplay their hand? Did they completely miss the idea that calling all of his supporters and even calling him, not names, we are used to that, but outrageous names like Nazi and fascist? Was that a big factor, you think, in I guess, the size of the outcome?
I think there were a couple of factors. First of all, I think on the left, we have seen really this intensifying rhetoric, particularly from the far left and the progressive wing of the party, on a number of issues like transgender women in sports, for example, or, for example, policing. We saw that was a huge issue in 2020. A number of these cultural issues that the far left was really trying to amplify, and they've been trying to amplify it since 2020, that a lot of more moderate Democrats were warning, against, kind of saying, don't focus on those issues, focus on the kitchen table issues like the economy, for example. I think that rhetoric from the far left, Republicans were able to take that and paint the entirety of the Democratic Party with that rhetoric. So I think that hurt them to a degree. On top of that, I think Democrats underestimated how powerful the economy would be as an issue. I think a lot of voters, whether they personally like President-elect Trump or not, voted for him because they thought their life was better 4 years ago, or I should say 4 years ago, before the coronavirus pandemic. They liked that inflation was lower under Donald Trump. They appreciated that, and they made that decision based on their pocketbook. And I think Democrats went into this, well, first of all, it didn't help that President Biden was for a while saying, using these economic indicators like, the Federal Reserve, for example, or the stock market, these economic indicators that everyday voters aren't necessarily paying attention to make the argument that the economy was rebounding. Maybe it was in some cases, but voters weren't feeling that, and Democrats weren't communicating that. They were also focusing quite a bit on this issue of abortion access, which we did see split ticket voting on that. Missouri, Arizona, Nevada, these are all states that Donald Trump won, but they also passed pro-abortion ballot measures. So I think Democrats sort of, you know, maybe underplayed the idea of the possibility of a split ticket voter or a voter that's looking at so many different factions of this, namely the economy.
You know, the economy is uncertain. You never know whether your money's worth as much today as it was yesterday. It's one of the reasons I buy gold from American Hartford Gold. American Hartford Gold has earned a 5-star rating and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. Be sure to tell them Mike Huckabee sent you. They'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first qualifying order. Call 844-417-1010 or text Mike to 998899. You'll be glad you did business with American Hartford Gold. It seems that the Democrats are having a hard time learning anything from what is simply a shellacking. I mean, there's no other word for it. 312 electoral votes to 226, 4.5 million to 5 million ahead in the popular vote. And most of the people who are giving analysis are saying it's the fault of the voters. They're stupid. They're a bunch of morons. They should have known better, and it's their fault. Or even saying, well, it's Joe Biden's fault. He should have dropped out sooner. Even though the Democrats were saying right up until that debate in June that he was at the top of his game, he was great, sharp as a tack, they couldn't keep up with him, all those things, which are an absolute lie, and everybody knew it, but they kept saying it. Do they not learn anything? Is there not just a tinge of humility? Because I know when I was a kid, if somebody beat me up on the school playground, I didn't jump up and blame every other kid in the school for having been whipped. I showed a little humility in that moment because, quite frankly, there was nothing else to show. What have the Democrats learned, if anything?
Well, look, there's a lot of finger pointing, no doubt, among the Democrats right now, and the blame game is really certainly bubbling up, and they're trying to figure out how they can move forward. I thought David Axelrod, former President Obama's former campaign manager in 2008, made a very interesting point. He talked about how Democrats, in the Obama era, pre the Obama era, had a bigger, stronger grip on the working class, that they could easily call themselves the working class party. They enjoyed widespread support among unions. I think you saw a number of unions this cycle, not a lot, but a significant number, not necessarily majority, not endorse or, talk about that there were union members that were supporting Donald Trump. And a lot of this has to do with this perception that there are certain members of the Democratic Party, or this perception that Democrats are the party of the elitists right now, that they are out of touch with most of the country. And we've seen strategists like David Axelrod really say, look, we've got to figure out how we can fine tune our messaging to get back to where we were, because clearly we've seen Donald Trump dominate and take back this space of being the candidate of the working man or working woman.